Hi, this week we're going to be looking in at your feedback from the summaries, reviewing a little bit on Whistling Vivaldi and how it's going to impact and be used for your next or your first essay, your second writing assignment, how you choose your evidence, and looking at why details are important, and then focusing on the week ahead. So first off, I want to make sure you reflect on your goals a little bit. Look at your time management. How much time are you spending for this class, and how much might you need to adjust that to make sure you're going to be able to get the reading and the writing done. This week the reading wasn't so heavy. It was just the 3 chapters as far as length is concerned, but you still had to read for these cases and maybe different kind of reading than you've done in a while. But you did have to write the summary and watch the video, so that took a lot of energy and time. So I want to make sure you're thinking about your time management as we look forward. Second, I want to look at make sure you know where to look for your comments. So when you go into turnitin.com, you'll notice, when you go into web access, you'll notice when you click on the link where you submitted your essay, you click back on that and you go to submission inbox. Once you do that, you'll get to a site that looks like this, and you open it, and you'll see that this little thing down here, the QM, is highlighted. You'll want to click on this one where the little cloud is, so that you can see my comments to you. You can also see your score out of 100. And for several of you, I'm giving you the option to revise so that you can increase your score. And this originality percentage is how much your essay focuses on or pulls right from original material. So you want that number to be low. This student happened to have a cover letter, which I did not require for your summary, although you will be using a cover letter for your first essay. So if you have questions about that, let me know. You can also go down here and print my comments and check things over here like your word count and such. But I'm more than happy to get online with you or get on the phone and review your comments with you if you have questions. But make sure you do read this part first before you decide if you need to talk to me. As far as Whistling Vivaldi, I hope you guys are enjoying his research. I think it's pretty readable and it's interesting. I don't think many people believe that there's much, that stereotypes are that big of a deal. And so it's kind of interesting to see how they do really affect. So here are the 3 chapters listed out. I really suggest that you have your discussion questions out while you're reading, so that you can get your homework done while you're reading. I think it's a good way to read strategically and read thoroughly. There's some definite important points that I've highlighted here that he returns to. The pool story he returns to throughout. He brings up Brent Staples, who is a journalist that started actually whistling Vivaldi to get people to respond differently to him, and that's where he gets the title of his book. And then some initial studies. The Jane Elliott experiment is really interesting. That happened around the time of Martin Luther King, and some how Steele got involved in it. And then these 3 tests in chapter 3 are really key. You want to make sure you understand those 3 tests. And the supersonics example he brings up quite a bit and refers to, and I think it's important that you get a sense of how stigma impacted their performance. Okay, so when you start to write this essay, I've given you a skeleton that kind of goes through a lot of the paragraph work, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to enter the conversation. So what you want to do is think about what generally is thought of around stereotypes, and I've listed out 4 points to help you organize your thoughts for the intro. The first is that many people believe that stereotypes are in bad taste, are not really, not really good to stereotype others, but are fairly innocuous, which means harmless. And I think in reality, what you can see in point 2 is that Steele's research proves this otherwise. So it's not opinion. Research is actually showing that there are serious consequences with stereotyping or stereotype threat. And then point 3, you want to introduce your background with stereotypes that you want to focus on. Now you might have several areas, but you got to narrow it down to 1 or 2. And then you want to bring that into your thesis statement, which is you are trying to argue that stereotypes have impact and that they have impacted you. Okay? Um, so next you want to think about what kind of pre-writing did you do already? I'm going to be asking you to do essay skeleton, but there are other options. Maybe you did an outline and you like the logic behind and the organization behind an outline. You can make these on your own. You might have done mind mapping, which is like a more visual and graphic way to capture your ideas and your subpoints and evidence. And then you might have done an essay skeleton. Well, you did do, because I asked you to do one, although it might look a little different from this, the one that I had you focus on. And this allows you to kind of fill in the blank, which a lot of students like to do. And so you can use any of these tactics to help you write. You just need to see which one works best for you. As a reminder, your paragraphs for paragraph development need to follow the T format. And you want to make sure your evidence and analysis are clear. You're going to have two sets of evidence in each body paragraphs, one for Steele and how he brings up that form of stereotype threat or that effect, and then your own experience with stereotype threat in that same area. Evidence types you might have are facts and statistics, which you definitely are going to see with Steele, and then quotes, which could be one of the researchers or one of the students who are quoted in their experience with stereotype threat. And then finally, examples would be from your personal experience or hypothetical examples, what if examples that might get your readers thinking. You want to think hard about the quality of effective evidence and what characteristics they have. So first, there's relevance, accuracy, coherence. Those are three things we're going to be talking about throughout this quarter, or this semester. But what we want to focus on for this one is the idea of detail. What are some descriptive detail that can help our evidence stand out more for the reader? So here's an example. At the top, you'll see it with the T, the topic is this idea that a college that's very much focused on science and technology has a bias and basically stereotypes the English or arts faculty and curriculum. So if that's the case, here's a piece of evidence to back it up, to prove that that's true. And it says here, when a female colleague or I would suggest a training on student-centered teaching or community building, our ideas were ignored or slighted. So that's true and it's a good example, but it doesn't really give us the context. It doesn't give us enough detail that we really get the feeling or the tone behind how they felt. So more detail here. It says, when a female colleague and I suggested a community building event, but then we say where? At the California Academy of Sciences. That should be a place that a science-oriented faculty would want to go, right? And it says our dean smirked and said that he couldn't get faculty to meet after work or on their day off. So basically that shows how they were slighted. The word smirked is really important here. The idea that they were trying to go to the California Academy of Sciences, that gives us a specific detail that lets us get a better picture, a clearer picture of how this evidence is important. One way to do that is to use this one technique called the emotion wheel. Oftentimes when we're describing something, we get hung up on some very basic descriptions like fear, anger, sadness, and where we could be more specific, and you can see these as the wheel goes out that can help us find a more specific attribute of that basic emotion. And you can actually download this on Google. Just Google like emotion wheel and there's PDFs of it everywhere. So consider this sentence. In high school, I was picked last for PE teams, which made me sad. I started to believe that I could not play sports well because I was different. Now that's clear. I mean, it shows that this person had a stereotype threat that they sort of bought into because of an experience with school. But this idea of sadness is very basic. And we also don't know why this person felt different. And those two things could really be filled in. So if we go back, we could look at the emotion wheel under sadness and think, okay, well, how exactly did they feel? Do they want to talk about the fact they felt isolated, or they felt depressed, or maybe they felt ignored? And so those would be more helpful words that really capture the feeling the person had. The other thing we would want to do is look at what do they mean by different. So describe, was it their height, their lack of coordination? Was it their strength? maybe they wore glasses, you know, we don't know why they felt different. Okay, so those details would be important for this piece of evidence. Now, when you're going to be writing this essay, you want to look at the rubric first. The rubric is what I use to grade and assess your essay. And I've already emailed it to you, but I've also linked it here. It has 12 areas that I look at. Turnitin.com doesn't allow me to automatically put it within the Turnitin that's used on Web Access, but I will be using it. So one thing you want to do is review it, but you also might want to assess yourself, your own essay, when you work with your peer. And so have a conversation with them about your own self-assessment in those 12 areas and see what you come up with. Here are your peer groups. We have two Annas with the last name with M, so I had to write out their full last names. And then we have two Kellys, different initials, so make sure you get the right person. You want to email them via Web Access and contact and connect with them. And reach out, find a time that you guys can meet in Skype. I have all the directions under the peer review link on the shell. And then looking at this week ahead, I want you to review your feedback from the summary, revise if needed. You have a week to revise. You want to finish the reading, reread if you need to, answer those discussion questions, start working on the essay skeleton and submit that, take the reading quiz, and then write a draft and exchange that with your peer. Even if you haven't gotten the draft 100% finished, you know, as long as you have a body paragraph, an intro, a couple body paragraphs and an intro, that would at least be a good start. It's better to meet the deadline with them because they're going to need time to respond and to finish their work. If you have questions, please feel free to call, text, or email. Texting will be fastest as far as my response time if it's a short question. And I look forward to working with you this week.